Welcome back to the Psychology of Us podcast. I'm Professor RJ Starr, and today we're diving into a topic that I believe is one of the most powerful tools for understanding ourselves and living more intentional lives: self-awareness. It also happens to be one of the most asked questions by my students, friends, and family alike. If you've ever paused to wonder why you made a certain decision, felt an unexpected emotion, or repeated a behavior that didn't serve you, you've already touched on self-awareness. It's the key to unlocking those why questions and, perhaps more importantly, turning that knowledge into meaningful change. Let me start by sharing a story from my own life. Early in my career, I was tasked with leading a team on an important project. I thought I was being an effective leader, clear, focused, and organized. But during a team feedback session, one of my colleagues gently said, "Sometimes it feels like you're so focused on the outcome that you don't hear us." At first, I was taken aback. I saw myself as approachable and collaborative, but their words made me pause. Reflecting on my behavior, I realized I had been so intent on meeting deadlines and delivering results that I often brushed past my team's input without truly listening. That moment was humbling, but it stayed with me. It taught me a crucial lesson. How I perceive myself isn't always how others experience me. It was a powerful reminder that self-awareness isn't just about understanding your intentions, it's about recognizing the impact you have on those around you. Self-awareness bridges that gap. It's about looking inward to better understand our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, but also looking outward to see how we're perceived in the world. And while it sounds simple in theory, it's far from easy. There are blind spots, biases, and even societal expectations that can cloud how we see ourselves. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, in his work on emotional intelligence, describes self-awareness as the keystone of emotional intelligence. It's not just about knowing what you're feeling, but understanding why you're feeling it and how those emotions influence your actions. Research consistently shows that self-awareness plays a critical role in personal growth, professional success, and healthy relationships. In fact, a 2018 study by Tasha Eurich and her team found that people with high self-awareness are not only more successful in their careers, but also report higher satisfaction in their personal lives. In this episode, we're going to unpack what self-awareness truly is, explore the barriers that make it so difficult, and discuss practical ways to strengthen it. Along the way, I'll draw on research, psychology, and real-world examples to help bring this concept to life. I hope this conversation sparks curiosity and inspires you to see yourself and the world around you with greater clarity. So, grab your coffee or settle into whatever space makes you feel comfortable. Let's explore the inner world together. What is self-awareness? Let's begin by defining self-awareness. At its core, self-awareness is the ability to reflect on and understand your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It's the lens through which we observe ourselves, our motivations, patterns, and the roles we play in the world around us. In psychology, we often break this concept down into two key dimensions: internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. Internal self-awareness is about how well you know yourself. It's the process of asking, why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way? What do I really want? This might sound straightforward, but research suggests that many of us aren't as in touch with our inner world as we think. Tasha Eurich, a leading researcher on self-awareness, found in her studies that while 95% of people believe they're self-aware, only about 10–15% actually meet the criteria. That's a staggering gap, and it highlights how easy it is to overestimate our ability to truly know ourselves. Then there's external self-awareness, which is about understanding how others perceive us. This involves stepping outside of ourselves and considering the impact we have on others, our tone, body language, or even how our choices ripple through relationships or communities. The tricky part here is balancing these two dimensions. Too much focus on how others perceive us can lead to people-pleasing or overthinking. On the other hand, ignoring external feedback can create blind spots where we fail to see how we're coming across. To make this real, let's think about a common scenario: a team meeting at work. Imagine someone who believes they're being passionate and assertive when sharing their ideas, but their colleagues perceive them as overbearing or dismissive. The disconnect lies in external self awareness. Without recognizing how their behavior is landing with others, the person might never understand why their contributions aren't well received. Or worse, they might attribute it to others' shortcomings rather than their own. Self awareness is vital because it gives us the tools to bridge these gaps. It allows us to navigate life with more intention and clarity. For example, research from Goldman's work on emotional intelligence shows that leaders who develop strong self awareness are more likely to inspire trust and collaboration in their teams. Beyond leadership, it's a skill that can transform how we communicate with loved ones, set personal goals, and even handle stress. But why is self awareness so elusive? Part of the challenge lies in the complexity of human thought and emotion. Our minds are flooded with biases. Confirmation bias, for instance, makes us see what we want to see rather than what's true. Add to that the influence of culture, upbringing, and societal pressures, and it's easy to see how distorted our self perception can become. In this episode, I want you to start asking yourself: how do I see myself? How do others see me? And where might there be a disconnect? Remember, self awareness isn't about perfection, it's about curiosity. It's about becoming an active observer of your own mind rather than a passive participant. When we engage with this process, we begin to see opportunities for growth, connection, and meaningful change. In the next part, we'll explore some of the barriers that make self awareness so difficult to achieve. From psychological blind spots to cultural influences, we'll uncover what might be standing in your way, and more importantly, how to overcome it. If self awareness is so important, why is it often so difficult to achieve? The answer lies in the obstacles that cloud our ability to see ourselves clearly. These barriers, whether they're rooted in psychology, culture, or simply the busyness of life, can prevent us from understanding our own thoughts and behaviors. Let's explore some of the most common challenges to self awareness and how they manifest in our lives. One of the biggest barriers to self awareness is what psychologists call blind spots. These are areas where our self perception doesn't align with reality. Blind spots often arise because we instinctively protect our ego. For example, we might avoid acknowledging a bad habit, like procrastination, by rationalizing it as needing to work under pressure. Similarly, we might fail to notice how our tone of voice can come across as impatient or critical in conversations, even though others experience it that way. Research by Urich and colleagues suggests that blind spots are universal. In one of their studies, participants were asked to evaluate their leadership abilities, and then their colleagues provided anonymous feedback. The results showed a significant gap between how the participants viewed themselves and how others saw them. These blind spots aren't necessarily intentional, they're part of how our brains process information. To protect ourselves from uncomfortable truths, we subconsciously ignore or distort certain aspects of our behavior. Another major obstacle is cognitive bias, which distorts the way we process information. Confirmation bias, for example, leads us to seek out evidence that supports our existing beliefs while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. Imagine someone who believes they're a great listener. They may focus on the one time they offered thoughtful advice to a friend, while dismissing feedback from others that they frequently interrupt during conversations. The Dunning-Kruger effect is another bias that impacts self-awareness. This psychological phenomenon suggests that people with lower competence in a given area tend to overestimate their abilities. It's not because they're arrogant, but because their lack of skill prevents them from recognizing their own shortcomings. Conversely, highly skilled individuals often underestimate their abilities because they assume that what comes easily to them must come easily to others as well. These biases can create a distorted sense of self, making it difficult to accurately assess our strengths and weaknesses. Self-awareness doesn't develop in a vacuum. It's shaped by cultural norms, family dynamics, and societal expectations. In some cultures, self expression and individuality are encouraged, which can foster a greater focus on internal self awareness. In others, there's a stronger emphasis on harmony and collective identity, which may prioritize external self awareness over introspection. Take, for instance, a person raised in a family where expressing emotions was discouraged. They might grow up suppressing their feelings, believing that being strong means staying silent. As a result, they may struggle to identify or articulate their emotions later in life. Similarly, societal pressures can push people toward external validation, such as focusing on likes and followers on social media, rather than cultivating a true sense of self. Finally, the sheer pace and noise of modern life can drown out opportunities for reflection. Between work, social media, and the constant demands of daily life, it's easy to move through the world on autopilot. When we're constantly reacting to external stimuli, we lose the chance to pause and examine what's happening internally. Over time, this can create a disconnection between who we are and how we experience the world. I remember working with a student who was a successful professional but struggled with persistent feelings of dissatisfaction. Despite achieving their career goals, they couldn't pinpoint why they felt unfulfilled. Through our conversations, it became clear that their blind spot was a lack of alignment between their values and their work. They had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, assuming that success would bring happiness, without ever pausing to ask, is this what I really want? Once they started to explore that question, they began to make changes that brought their life into greater harmony with their true self. Recognizing these barriers is the first step toward overcoming them. With the right tools and mindset, self awareness becomes not just a concept, but a transformative practice. Now that we've explored the barriers to self awareness, let's talk about how to overcome them. Cultivating self awareness isn't about achieving perfection or having all the answers. It's about developing the tools to understand yourself more deeply, embrace growth, and live with greater intention. Think of self awareness as a skill, one that can be practiced and refined over time. Self awareness begins with reflection. This means taking the time to pause and examine your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without judgment. Journaling is one of the most effective tools for this. When you write down your thoughts, you create space to explore questions like, what am I feeling right now? Or, why did I respond the way I did? For example, a study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that expressive writing not only improves mental health, but also enhances self awareness by helping people process their emotions. You don't have to write a novel. A few sentences a day about a meaningful interaction or a challenging moment can reveal patterns you might not notice otherwise. Mindfulness is another powerful way to cultivate self awareness. It's the practice of being present in the moment, observing your thoughts and emotions without reacting to them. This might sound abstract, but it's surprisingly practical. Imagine you're stuck in traffic and feeling frustrated. Instead of letting the frustration spiral into anger, mindfulness encourages you to step back and observe, I'm feeling tense. My thoughts are focused on being late. My body is tight. This small act of noticing can interrupt the cycle of reactivity and create a sense of calm. Research has shown that mindfulness can literally change the brain. Studies using MRI scans have found that regular mindfulness practice increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with self awareness and emotional regulation. Start small, perhaps with a few minutes of focused breathing or a guided meditation, and build from there. While internal reflection is essential, external feedback is equally valuable. Often we can't see ourselves clearly without the perspective of others. This doesn't mean accepting every critique at face value, but it does mean being open to constructive input from trusted people in your life. A colleague once told me about an exercise they used in their organization called Stop, Start, Continue. Employees would ask their peers to share one thing they should stop doing, one thing they should start doing, and one thing they should continue doing. While it was initially uncomfortable, many reported gaining insights they would never have discovered on their own. When seeking feedback, choose people you trust. those who have your best interests at heart and can communicate honestly without being hurtful. And when you receive feedback, resist the urge to defend yourself. Instead, try to listen with curiosity. What can I learn from this? Psychological tools like personality assessments can also aid in self awareness. Tests like the Myers Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, or the Enneagram can provide a starting point for understanding your tendencies, strengths, and challenges. For instance, the MBTI might reveal that you're more introverted, which helps explain why you feel drained after large social gatherings. That said, these tools are just that, tools, not truths. They offer insights, but they're not definitive labels. Use them as a way to spark deeper self reflection, not to box yourself into a fixed identity. The key to cultivating self awareness is consistency. Just as physical fitness requires regular exercise, self awareness requires daily practice. One way to build this habit is to create a self check in routine. At the end of each day, ask yourself three questions. What went well today and why? What could I have done differently? How did I feel throughout the day and what influenced those feelings? This process doesn't have to take long. 5 minutes is enough. Over time, these small moments of reflection can add up to significant shifts in how you understand yourself. Let me share the story of a former client, Sarah. Sarah was a successful marketing executive who felt unfulfilled despite her accomplishments. During our work together, she realized that her career didn't align with her core value of creativity. Through journaling and mindfulness, she began to identify specific ways her job stifled her creative energy. She also sought feedback from colleagues, which confirmed her feelings. Armed with this awareness, Sarah pivoted her career toward graphic design, a role that allowed her to thrive. Her transformation wasn't immediate, but her journey demonstrates the power of self awareness in aligning your life with your values. As we've seen, self awareness isn't something you achieve overnight. It's a lifelong practice of reflection, mindfulness, and openness to feedback. But the effort is worth it. When you become more aware of your inner world, you unlock the potential to live with greater authenticity, purpose, and connection. So, now that we've explored the foundations of self awareness and how to cultivate it, let's turn our attention to where it truly makes a difference: real life. Self awareness isn't just an abstract concept or a tool for introspection. It's a powerful resource that can transform how we approach relationships, careers, and even mental health. By understanding ourselves better, we can make decisions that align with our values, communicate more effectively, and navigate challenges with resilience. At its heart, self awareness is the cornerstone of healthy relationships. It allows us to understand our emotional triggers, recognize patterns in our interactions, and approach conflicts with empathy rather than defensiveness. For example, imagine a scenario where a couple is arguing about household chores. One partner feels overwhelmed and snaps, "You never help out." The other partner feels attacked and responds defensively, "That's not true. I did the dishes yesterday." Without self awareness, the argument escalates, with both sides feeling unheard. Now, let's introduce self awareness into the equation. The first partner might pause to reflect: why am I so upset? Is this really about the dishes, or am I feeling unsupported in other areas? Meanwhile, the second partner might think, why am I getting so defensive? Could there be some truth in what they're saying? By understanding their own emotions and motivations, both partners can communicate more effectively and work toward a resolution. Research on emotional intelligence, particularly by psychologist Daniel Goleman, highlights the role of self awareness in managing relationships. When we're aware of our emotions and how they influence our behavior, we're better equipped to navigate the complexities of human connection. In the professional realm, self awareness can mean the difference between feeling stuck and finding fulfillment. It helps us identify our strengths, recognize our limitations, and align our work with our values. Take the story of James, a mid level manager who excelled at meeting deadlines but struggled with leading his team. Through self reflection, he realized that his perfectionist tendencies made him micromanage, which stifled his team's creativity. By seeking feedback from colleagues and working with a mentor, James learned to trust his team more and delegate effectively. This not only improved his team's performance, but also reduced his own stress. Self awareness also plays a critical role in career transitions. Consider a 2021 study published in the Journal of Vocational Behavior, which found that individuals with high self awareness were more likely to make career changes that aligned with their values and passions. By understanding what truly matters to them, these individuals were better equipped to navigate uncertainty and take bold steps toward fulfilling careers. When it comes to mental health, self awareness is both a diagnostic tool and a pathway to healing. It helps us recognize patterns of thought and behavior that contribute to stress, anxiety, or depression. For instance, someone experiencing chronic stress might notice that their self talk often includes phrases like, I have to do everything perfectly, or if I fail, I'll let everyone down. By becoming aware of these thought patterns, they can begin to challenge and reframe them. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most widely used therapeutic approaches, is built on this principle. By increasing awareness of how thoughts influence feelings and behaviors, CBT empowers individuals to make meaningful changes in their lives. Mindfulness based practices, too, have proven effective in managing mental health challenges. A 2020 meta analysis in Clinical Psychology Review found that mindfulness interventions significantly reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, largely by enhancing self awareness and emotional regulation. Let me share the story of Maria, a university student I worked with who struggled with procrastination. Maria often put off assignments until the last minute, which caused her immense stress. When we explored the issue, she discovered a surprising blind spot. She avoided starting projects because she feared they wouldn't meet her own high standards. Her procrastination wasn't about laziness, it was about perfectionism. Once Maria became aware of this pattern, she began to approach her work differently. She set smaller, more manageable goals and gave herself permission to produce imperfect drafts. Over time, her stress levels decreased and her productivity improved. Maria's journey illustrates how self awareness can uncover the root of a problem and lead to practical solutions. Self awareness is not just an inward journey, it's a skill that enhances every aspect of life. Whether we're navigating conflicts in relationships, making career decisions, or managing our mental health, the ability to understand ourselves gives us the clarity and confidence to move forward. So, let's bring it all together. As we conclude this episode of The Psychology of Us, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've explored today. Self awareness is the foundation of a meaningful and intentional life. It's the skill that helps us understand our inner world, our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and connect it to the outer world in a way that aligns with our values and goals. We've discussed the two dimensions of self awareness: internal, the ability to know ourselves, and external, the ability to understand how others perceive us. We've explored the barriers that make self awareness challenging, from psychological blind spots to cultural and social influences. And we've looked at practical strategies for cultivating it, including reflection, mindfulness, feedback, and tools like journaling and personality assessments. But the most important takeaway is this: self awareness is a journey, not a destination. It's a skill we refine over time, one small realization at a time. Whether it's noticing an emotional trigger, seeking feedback, or simply pausing to ask, what am I feeling right now? Every step we take toward greater self awareness brings us closer to a life of authenticity and growth. As you move forward, I encourage you to start small. Pick one practice, whether it's a daily moment of mindfulness, a journaling routine, or a conversation with someone you trust, and commit to it. Remember, this isn't about becoming a perfect version of yourself. It's about becoming a more honest and compassionate one. I'll leave you with a thought from the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, who famously said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Self awareness is the awakening that allows us to see ourselves clearly, connect more deeply with others, and navigate the complexities of life with grace and purpose. Thank you for joining me today. If you have questions, thoughts, or suggestions for future episodes, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at prof.rjstaroutlook.com. Don't forget to subscribe to The Psychology of Us so you don't miss the next episode, where we'll dive into another fascinating topic about the human mind and behavior. In fact, I'll give you a heads up. Our next topic will be emotional intelligence, navigating your feelings and actions. So, until then, take care, stay curious, and keep exploring your inner world.